Hello everyone and welcome to another online event by Oradea Tech Hub. Thank you for your patience. First of all, we had some issues with the Facebook streaming service and thank you for staying and keep refreshing the feed. I will not take long now with the introduction because we are a bit late. I just want to tell you that today we are continue to talk about how to expand your business to the US market, and I have two extraordinary guests with me, Bogdan and Sebastian. Thank you for taking time and be here live in Oradea Fortress. It's a very hot day today, so hopefully this water will help us to keep up until the end. As Cristiano Ronaldo said, we'll try to follow his advice and drink as much water as possible. I'll let Sebastian and Bogdan then to introduce themselves a bit, and then we'll move on to our awaited subject. Sebastian, thank you for being with us.
It's good to be here. So my personal story, I was born in Romania and then I immigrated to the United States at age 12. I lived there for 15 years. Then I moved back to Romania in 2005 and I've been involved in education, so I'm a university professor. Also, I consult with companies, IT companies, I do trainings and things like that. And I've been involved in a number of startups and some of the other social service IT type stuff, both in Oradea and throughout Romania.
Amazing. One more thing I want to add, because I know that Sebastian would not, is that Oradea is Sebastian is one of Oradea Tech community fathers, and thank you for everything you've done so far for Oradea. Bogdan, can you tell us a bit about yourself too, please?
Happy to. So born and raised primarily in Romania, some of it in France. Graduated Griffith School of Management 2007, went to Timișoara, spent a little bit of time there, but the majority of my career has been in Oradea. And today I'm in Austin, moved there in 2016 with the first business I was in, and now I'm a co-founder at Lift Up Solutions and visiting now in Oradea.
Welcome back to Oradea.
Thank you.
Bogdan. For those of you who are watching on the Facebook page, if you want to have questions for our speakers, I hope you do, because at the end of the event we'll take as many questions as possible. Please move your feed to oradeatechhub.ro/live, where you have the Slido widget, and there you can write your questions. Your remarks, we'll take it from there and have it to our distinguished speakers. Okay, let's move to our subject, because time's not our friend today again. Let's start with a couple of things about the strategic part of moving or expanding your business to the US. Can you tell us a bit about this part, Sebastian?
So, a lot can be said about how to go about with your strategy for the US, but normally what I tell people is first you have to decide if you want to go to the US. And I think it's a very important question, because there's a time zone, there's an ocean going on, and there are all alternatives. So you can always expand your business into Europe or a neighboring country such as Hungary or things like that. So the first question is, do you want to go? The second question, are you going to go there based on a geographic strategy, or are you going to go there based on a sector or an industry? In other words, do you want to be in a particular city and say, I want to be in Austin, I want to be in Boston, I want to be in Atlanta? Or do you want to say, I want to service the healthcare industry, I want to service the gaming industry or the banking industry? I think that's very important. It's extremely important for you to establish very early on exactly what is it that you want to do. If you're going in there with the old Romanian strategy, do you have a glass of water because I'm so hungry, I have no place to sleep tonight? In other words, you're trying to be all things to all people. That's pretty much a recipe for failure. You're just going to go in there, be very superficial, talk to lots of people, and not have anything at the end of it. So I think that's the first issue. The second issue is you must know who your prospects are. Now, we normally call them customers. That's kind of like what we wish them to be, but they're not necessarily our customers yet. So there are prospects. So I always tell people it's extremely important for you to have market intelligence. Fortunately, in the US market, you can buy a lot of that intelligence. So
reports, consumer insights.
Exactly. So there's a lot of data that you can purchase.
It's something we are not used to in Romania.
Exactly.
I don't even think that something like that exists somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that we get to make those kind of services and that kind of market intelligence because it makes life better for everybody. So it's not just a competitive advantage for the few. This could level the playing field. And fortunately, America has that. They're very advanced and having all kinds of associations, all sorts of meetups. So what I tell people is make sure that you understand your customers and you understand their behavior. What do they do? Don't go in there with assumptions. Assumptions are huge danger signs. Well, I think Americans are like this. Well, I think Americans prefer this. Well, I think my product is going to be great there. Just go in there and verify. Do your research, do your due diligence, talk to people either by observing the way they behave or asking them. Do a market survey and question them. Hey, listen, I have this particular service or this particular product. What would you react to it? The other point that I always talk about when we talk about customers and market intelligence is try to have some way to build your trust. Oftentimes, and I hope that Bogdan can tell us more about the number of competitors that we have there, but I've seen us as Romanians, and I guess everybody has this superiority complex, thinking that, hey, Americans are just waiting for us. They have the carpet rolled out. They cannot wait till me, a little Oradea firm is going to go in there and solve their problems. Fact of the matter is that they have lots of alternatives in their own country, in other parts of the world. So we are going uphill on this. So I think that in that particular context, you have to have some way to build trust. You have to be recommended. Somebody has to refer you. If you're simply doing, knocking on doors or cold calling and things like that, doesn't necessarily work.
Okay, but isn't that like a very American thing? I mean, we learned the cold calling strategy from Americans, I think.
I love cold calling. I do it. I teach it. I think it's very good. It's not necessarily the most cost-effective strategy. And when I mean cost, I mean in terms of money, but especially in terms of time. If you're going to go with the cold calling strategy, expect 3 or 4 years till you penetrate the market. So my recommendation is make sure that you have referrals. You have somebody to recommend you. You have some sort of a hook that gets people to you, some sort of a magnet.
Practical example
Please,
about
an
that.
example I would think of is really to find some projects that are currently going on. Of course, you've got your typical Upwork and freelancer projects and all of that. What I've seen companies do, we've done that as well. You just go on and do pro bono work, consulting work, where you offer your services in exchange for their testimonial, like they've done a great work. So all of a sudden you've got a few success stories you can put on your website that are locally owned. The other very practical strategy you can have is identify larger integrators of IT, larger companies that do essentially the same thing that you do. However, they need additional resources. So either they go and hire their own or they come to you, right? And so you come and offer 30, 40, 50 people they can use for their own projects. All of a sudden, they're going to say, well, I'd rather pay you rather than pay, for recruiting because it's hard to find people these days. So those are two very practical approaches you could take instead of just going directly to the customer that doesn't know you, that hasn't seen you at all.
Okay, and do you also have some practical input? Because from what I understand, your perspective was more for the IT service companies.
Oh, absolutely.
What about the maybe a startup that the product market?
I'm very weary on the product. I love entrepreneurs and I love product people, but I think that we have to be extremely, with our feet on the ground. That not all that fly is good to eat. Okay.
Yeah, because every startup in Romania or Eastern Europe dreams about the American market.
And they should. And I think they should aim for that, but they need to go about it smartly. So my recommendation is make sure you get a partner in America. And the diaspora is a great source of partnerships. Talk to the diaspora, see who's involved in it, how they can recommend you or refer you. The other thing, you have these hubs, either they're venture capitals or they're universities or they're associations like the Tech Hub or Oradea Tech Hub. There's a similar version in Austin. There's a similar version in Boston. There's a similar version in Atlanta. So go to those people, say, look, I can offer this particular thing. But when it comes to the product, be very, very careful because you are not unique. People think that they're unique just because they can service the Romanian market. Once they go to the US market, they realize there's a lot of alternatives. And anymore, I just returned from the US, we spent a few months there. When I left, this was about a year ago, I thought that primarily it was 50% on the technological development and 50% on the marketing and sales piece. Now that I've come back and I've seen what's going on there, the proportions are 80-20. In other words, 20% has to do with your technical expertise and 80% has to do with your sales capability. And unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to do everything except sales.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I tell people, if you do not do sales, you're not an entrepreneur. So I would say that flat out, okay? Get out of entrepreneurship if you don't do sales. Because for all intents and purposes, for the first 3 years of your company's life, all you do is sales.
Or find someone who can.
Well, that's different. Then you have a partner, but then you will forever be sort of indebted to that person. That person will have more sway in the company. Because I've seen that happen. You know, can I hire myself a sales manager? Can you come and be my sales manager? Look, the best salesperson for a startup, for a product, is the founder. So find it within yourself. You can become a salesperson. America is a good place for you to cut your teeth. People expect you to come and fail, and they'll kick you out and call you names and things like that. And it's a good experience. I think it's a great experience for you to sell on the funding part and then on the product itself.
Okay. Do you have any other, sales strategy recommendations, both for IT services or the product companies?
I will go with be wary of too many consultants. The world's full of them on LinkedIn, everywhere else. So there's lots of people who are promising you, in a sense, what they want to do is they want to sell you that they're going to do whatever for you. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they cannot get you open doors. I'm not saying for you not to hire a consultant as you're going into the US market, but be wary. Don't jump thinking that they will do all the things that you do not want to do yourself. Back to the sales part. And unfortunately, and here's the essence of sales. Sales equals rejection. You have to be comfortable with rejection. And Americans are very direct and straightforward. Romanians, when they reject you, they don't answer your call. They lie to you to your face. Yeah, we'll do it. Sure, we'll sign the contract. And then, they never show up to the meeting or what have you, because we don't have this thing. And it's pleasant. I'm still your friend, so on and so forth. Americans are
just business.
Yeah.
Something personal.
Americans are very flat. No, thank you. No, you're not competitive. I have a better alternative. Buzz off. You got to get used to that. If you're going to be operating on the U.S. market, you got to have a thick skin. Without it, you're done. You're gone.
What I would add, especially if you're starting from the grassroots, right? You have no structure whatsoever. One of the approaches I've seen, and we've tested and worked well. I mean, if you just tell people, whether on LinkedIn or anywhere else, if you go to conferences, webinars, you just approach people that know about the market and just say, look, I'm a beginner here with my product, with my service. I would love to learn from you. Obviously, I'm not trying to sell you. Start with that. Can I have 15 minutes of your time to learn a little bit from your experience? If you have to, pay them. Remember Dropbox? They paid you to come become their client. So I do think that's a much better investment than just starting from scratch and throwing in money at consultants. Try to learn yourself, especially going back to what you said, and obviously you know more about products, but the idea is if you're the founder, if you want to get acquainted with a market, learn from those who might be your users, who might benefit from your service without having anything to buy or to lose within the process.
I want to add some other thing. Don't go to America if you don't have money. I'm sorry to say that. It sounds terrible, and I don't mean to show that we have money or things like that. Yeah.
I mean, everyone want to go to expand their business to the US to make money.
Yes, but you gotta invest money to make money. It's kind of like EU funds here in Romania. If you're dirt poor, if you have nothing, you do not belong, applying for any kind of financing line. If you have a little bit of money and you're willing to invest it wisely, then you can go further. You can double, you can triple your money, but you cannot start with nothing. So it costs money, going in there, and maybe Bogdan can talk about the logistics of, having an office, having a presence. Be prepared to invest money. If you don't want to invest any money, maybe you're not ready for the US market. Wait a couple more years for that.
Thank you. Okay, let's move the discussion to the like specific things you need to do in order to get to the US market. Maybe Bogdan, you can tell us more a bit, I don't know, about setting up an office, about competition there, about how you hire a team and so on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, start with the office. I think everybody's, dreaming of having an office in either Silicon Valley or, any other one of those centers like Austin, New York, Boston, you name it, LA primarily, right? And you start asking yourself, should I do this or not? So I want to take a few steps back to last year, March or April. McKinsey comes out with this, what I thought was even then ahead of the curve type of article where they actually argued, look, there's going to be an issue with office space in general, right, across the world. You've got a very large spectrum of options, starting from, everybody's in the office to the other end where everybody's remote, right? For instance, Zapier, right? We all know Zapier. They started off remotely. They're still remote. Huge company, right? Successful. And then you've got in the middle where you have the hybrid. You might have a few pockets of teams here and there in some of the big office cities and regions because you have more people there, but then everybody else is dispersed. So half of your workforce might be dispersed. So what they were saying is that what is your primary goal with your workforce, with your office space? Do you want to receive customers? Do you want to see them face to face? Is your business of that sort? For instance, if you consult, like say Deloitte or PricewaterhouseCoopers, clients will come to visit you. They can't wait to come to your offices and drink an expensive coffee, right? That's why Deloitte decided, even now after the pandemic, you know what? We're going to offer all of our UK office, 20,000 people, 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, so that they can manage that, as a benefit, but also to fulfill the business need. So if your business need is to have customers, you got to think of, I should have an office, I need to welcome them, and so on. However, even then, if the number of customers isn't as important as is, for instance, hiring the people, right? You have all of a sudden restrictions. You can only hire so many people locally that match your company culture, your company's needs today. So it's easy then to think, okay, what if I go outside of the box of the US or Romania to find people? There's smart people all over the world. Businesses have been built like that. So if your primary goal is to find the best people in the world to work for your startup, for your business, for your product, and I know businesses, the founder is in the US, everybody else is in Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, some smart people, right? So it comes down to that. Let's say you're somewhere in the middle where you have the hybrid, right? We're a company like that. We started off with an office here. We still have our office here in Oradea, but most of our staff is really across Romania. We're going into Moldova, into Ukraine right now, just because we see that there's, first of all, a need for tech talent, but also there is an openness more and more for our clients who are either product companies, services companies, consulting companies, to be working with people who are not necessarily sitting in our office. And this is a huge change brought upon by the pandemic. And you've seen, for instance, even before the pandemic, you did have the skills gap. You couldn't find talent, but now this has been like accentuated, and all of a sudden, there's an explosion of need of tech talent. So that really gives us a lot of options. Companies are starting to realize that this is an actual really good option. And if you had, some of them that were not open at all before the pandemic to hiring remotely, pandemic hit, they had a lot of their people in their homes, and all of a sudden they realize, why do I need to keep them in the US? I could work with anybody who could be on this time zone. They can communicate properly. They have the same, standards of quality and performance. So all of a sudden, the whole world opened up because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of opportunities based on your priorities. I would start with asking, what's more important to me? Clients in person, people, for myself as a business, and so on. And there might be other factors to consider as well. So that would be one point. You want to add something?
I was going to ask, since he has the experience in the U.S., talk a little about competition, because I brought that up, and I think that many of the people in Romania who are contemplating going to the U.S. are undermining, they're underestimating their competition. They think their competition is way low and relaxed.
It's unbelievable.
Just one,
Go ahead.
one thing, please. Before that, I just want. Our speakers are here to also answer your questions. So again, please go to oradeteka.ro/live where you have the Slido widget, and please add your questions, because in a couple of minutes we'll take them one by one. Yeah. Please, Bogdan.
So essentially, remind me of the question. I'm sorry. Competition, right?
Competition in the U.S.
So you have a few main sources of competition. I would start even with the U.S. You've got large companies, consulting companies like Accenture, or you name it, any of the big four and all of the surrounding companies. They've received what are called so-called blanket visa, like from the government. And so what they do is you have a lot of these companies that bring in people from anywhere in the world. They bring them in, kind of lower salaries than the Americans, and all of a sudden, until they're on that H-1B visa, they are dependent on that company. And they are the main competition to companies in the US that have their own consultants. They will be a competition to somebody else coming from international as well, because they're cheaper than the US counterparts, and all of a sudden it's like the best of both worlds, right? Cheaper in the US, no problem. The second one I would go into would be South America. Incredible talent. They've got the smarts, they've got the time zone advantage. They're in the same time zone with most of the US, so you've got that huge advantage laying out there. Plenty of people too. So you've got Mexico, Brazil, you name it, it's going to be there. Tech people, very smart, again. Call centers as well. And then if you go really now with the pandemic, it's really anyone in the world. It was before, but now even more, just because of the reason I mentioned earlier, where companies really opened up to everybody. So just like you are now thinking about, perhaps as a company to go to the US and expand, so are thousands of others who are perhaps as skilled as you, have as good as a team as you, and so on and so forth. And finally, I mean, it's just if you're looking to staff your own company, you got to think about others, even from Romania. It's here. You're going to have competition. They are going to know that you're going there. If you're going to put it out there, hey, we're in the US, you've got companies that are going to do roadshows. Just simple as that. They might not open up an office. I just met with someone 2 weeks ago in Austin. They're from the Ukraine. They had like a roadshow across the US where they met with their clients. It's incredible. They're going to be there even if they don't have an office there. So it's competition. It's very, very aggressive.
If you are talking about competition, what do you think that are, maybe both of you, what do you think are some of the Romanian companies' advantages there? How can we win there besides all these?
So I would start, especially since this is recent, I think UiPath is a wonderful cover for all of us. I mean, they're a phenomenon. Everybody knows about them. They're great. Number two, I think that, and it's kind of like a sweet pill, we have a lot of hackers. Râmnicu Vâlcea is the Hackerville capital of the world, right? I mean, there's an FBI and an Interpol office there. But we are also known for security services. You got Bitdefender, you got Typing DNA, and another number of companies who are really developing around there. The cryptocurrencies, the whole blockchain model. So I think that if we learn to utilize that, we can really do better. There's two directions that we can go as Romanians. One is digital consultants, where we are problem solvers, and that's I think one of the number one advantage that a Romanian company has. We're very flexible. We can adapt very quickly. Our language is fairly good. We are very service-oriented if we want to be. The second direction is really one in products. As we're talking about lots of competition and everything else, I don't want people thinking like the market is oversaturated, because it's not. I mean, globally, the world is growing, okay? There's lots more people being added on, and it's digitalizing. I mean, I don't think that we're at, I don't know, 10, 20% globally of digital activities. I mean, virtually every activity that human beings do can be digitalized, or almost every activity can be digitalized. So therefore, there's a lot of work for either a service company or a product company to innovate. So a product company can say, well, why don't we innovate that particular thing? Why don't we innovate that particular thing? And it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering idea. That's one thing that bothers me with a lot of entrepreneurs. They're all looking for the je ne sais quoi, the one thing that they're the only, don't.
One thing that will change the world.
No. Innovation is a lot of combination, and you borrow from this and you borrow from that. It's a matter of incremental improvement. You just got to be a little bit quicker. That's it. So there's lots of open space for that.
I will add two things here. The first thing I've heard about Romanians in the U.S. is the fact that, when I go into calls, said someone in the U.S., with Romanians, the one thing I can expect is that they will chime in. They will come up with ideas, recommendations. They will have what they call this vested interest to make sure that it's the best delivered service or product that they're part of, right? Whereas in other parts of the world, what's going to happen is that they go into the call and then, there's, just nothing.
You can say it's India.
All right, just name it, right? And
India,
they're wonderful at execution, but what they're looking for, everybody in the US is looking for an active participation in the creative process, in the improvement process. So if you have that to start with, and if you do that really well with your people, you're going to stand out. And by the way, that's across the world. You're going to have, a lot of competition, like you said, but you can differentiate yourself like that. And the other thing is, if you want to be really good against your competition, even in the US, is by winning one client at a time. If you do it right every time, and by doing right, I mean, if you deliver more value than what they pay for, they perceive they paid for, you will win. And this is true of anybody, really, but it is very important for the US, more important to them. Mouth works, but what I'm saying is that this needs to be your core strategy working with any client, not just word of mouth, because it's a good consequence, right? A good benefit from doing good work. But the clients, if you can win success stories like that by delivering more than what they paid for, and that needs to be your basic principle, it's going to get you business in the US. They pay attention to that amazingly.
If I can sum up, you need to promise less and deliver more.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to add.
Yeah,
I think that's something we are doing a bit bad, because we
promise too much.
Yeah, we are trying to sell ourselves, and in that process we are adding and overpromise a lot.
And unfortunately, we do have a few cultural things that are a disadvantage to us. So oftentimes we make a plan, and then we at the end say, "Ne descurcăm noi." We'll take care of it somehow. We'll figure out. We'll do something. That, without us realizing it, that discredits us. That is perceived as low quality. When you miss deadlines, when you don't do what you said, even though you have a very good excuse and a legitimate excuse. So I think we need to educate ourselves to promise less and deliver more. So where people say, hey, if I talk to Bogdan and he's giving me a deadline, he's telling me he can do this, he'll probably do more than what he said. Versus, well, whatever he says, discount that in half, and then you kind of get to where he's going to be. And that's a good thing to develop in terms of word to mouth.
We already started to have some questions. Before starting to get them into the conversation, I just want to have one more questions. Maybe you can talk a bit about the, legal part or this kind of thing.
Well, happy to do that. Yeah, very short form. There's
that's a subject we can.
I'm sure everybody's happy. I'm not a lawyer, so it's one of those things you don't have to pay for. The one thing I'll say about legal is make sure you need it, first of all. Right? It only costs about maybe $1,000 to open up a business. You just need a good lawyer and CPA, especially not lawyer, CPA who knows what it takes to open up a business as a essentially foreign entity, foreign entrepreneur. You might not have a business, you just want to go there, right? So it really doesn't cost a lot. Then you do need to have the support system. You're going to have to file for reports, for taxes and all of that. Besides the CPA, you need a good accountant, like a bookkeeper, right? And then you do need the CPA further on to make sure that the bookkeepers are doing their work. You're not missing deadlines with the state and everything else. So that's where I would start. It's not difficult. It takes time.
One more thing, I think, at least I heard this a lot, like in US, everyone sues everyone. Is this true? Should the companies be scared about this?
Absolutely not. I mean, the ones you're seeing, right, in the media are the ones that they want you to see, right? Let's start with that. It's as simple as that. Lawyers need to make their money somehow.
So let me add something to that, and this is striking, and again, it's a point for Romanians. The tax system in America is more than the tax system in Romania. So Romania is significantly lower, the overall taxes. So in America, somewhere between 35 and 50% when you add it all up and things like that. And I think it's going to go even higher with the current administration. So you pay less taxes in Romania than you pay in the US. The advantage to the US is that you get to write off a lot more expenses than you don't get to write off in Romania. So that's a trade-off. So if you have a company in America, tax-wise, you're going to pay more money, but you get to write off a lot more expenses. So that's the difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's start with some questions from the audience. An anonymous person is asking, policy-wise, which do you think are the most influential variables that are incentivizing the high-risk, high-reward economic behaviors in the USA? Should I repeat the question?
Good question. Good question.
That's a conference in itself. So it's like we appreciate it, really.
Well, I'll answer with one word: culture. It's the American culture. So the American culture, they are incredible probably at three things. One is they are excellent collaborators. Even though they hate each other, they know how to work together. I love that about them, you know. So they know how to collaborate. Two, they're really good at understanding money and talking about money. They put money up front. They know how to structure it. They know how to do things like that. And number three, and everybody knows about this one, they take risks. It's perfectly okay to fail. It's perfectly okay to make a fool of yourself and sort of come up again. You know,
keep talking and keep trying.
I love this. Why failing well is the key to success. That sums up the American culture right there. Exactly.
Thank you. Someone else, another anonymous person.
That's for you, Bogdan.
Don't you find it difficult working remotely with staff from all over the world? Don't you feel any inconvenience in the fact that you cannot feel their vibe?
I think it's going the culture
direction also.
And my answer is going to start with, that's why I'm here. Our team is actually here. So yes, there are challenges with working with remote staff. There's no question about it. If anything, the pandemic has proven that over and over again, starting from the fact that, you know, some of them will show up in their pajamas, to the fact that, you know, you start having health issues, right? Mental health issues, where if they work alone in an apartment all day long, that's going to become an issue, right? So you do have to meet those things with a few things like having really good management. You have to meet up with those people, talk about the difficult question. How are you doing? At a personal level. Second, even if they are remote, try to gather those teams every once in a while, at least once a year, figure out a way, get together, even if they're remote, as best as you can. And finally, try to do things that you would normally do, it might seem like a cliche, but almost like a happy hour over Zoom. It's a lot better than just having meetings that have a nonsense, I mean, from a personal standpoint, you have no connection unless you talk about, culture, jokes, comedy, or things that really make us human. So try to connect at a different level than just meetings. Those are great from an operational standpoint, as long as they're there, there and not wearing pajamas. And then, try to make it human, as best as you can, and work with that.
Thank you. Before going through the other questions, I have one question that
Please.
might sum a bit the talk today. Why, and if you are not prepared to answer right now, we'll take another question and then get to this one. Why should someone consider expanding their business to the US? I mean, not just, okay, the basic answer is money, and everyone want to go for the money, but maybe anything else. I think there are a lot of other things that we can add to this. Do you want to answer now? Should we take?
I can, but
I've got something to add, but please.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Let's go.
I think that going to the U.S. it's a validation piece. In other words, if you can do business in the U.S., you can probably do business everywhere. The second one, I think the U.S. is a great gateway to other places. Personally, I'm a big fan of China, not because I like what's going on there, but because I think that they have a lot of the issues of the future. So I would rather go to China via the U.S. So you go to the U.S. and then China and Asia and places like that. So I think that America can be a great springboard. Number three, I don't think you have anywhere else on earth such a concentration of talent and energy and ideas. So business is a lot about serendipitous meetings. You meet with somebody, you go run into somebody, you have a conference with somebody, and in the US you have the best chance of that as you're going in there. And again, my own experience the last 6 months, it's unbelievable how enriched I've come back, both in the intellectual level but also on business opportunities. Right now in the world, in the Western world, there's one of the greatest opportunities of all times with the baby boomers ready to retire and pass on their wealth and things like that. I mean, we're talking about $100 trillion total worldwide that is going to be transferred from people between ages 60 and 80 to people younger than that. So that's a huge opportunity, and
especially for the very young people, because basically what is going to happen, at least from what I read, is that those money and that fortune will move not to the next generation, it will skip a bit the generation
to the grandkids. Yeah, and again, I know lots of people who emigrate, and they go work, just manual type labor. One of the reasons we're doing this is because we want to encourage people to go in there as entrepreneurs. Why not buy U.S. companies? The easiest way to enter the U.S. market is to gather up some cash from Romania and then just go to one of these old people and say, hey, how about I buy your company? 5 years, I'll pay you off. You stay on as a partner with me. You start.
A conflict of cultures?
No.
Would they be open to sell their American company to a Romanian guy?
Money's just as green there.
Yeah. Okay.
Simple.
Okay.
This young man did it. I mean, he and his team, they did it, and I know some other companies who have done that. I think it's very, very possible, as long as we're not afraid, and this is one of the things I would love to see more in Romanian culture, the huspa, as the Hebrews say it, the audacity, the courage, say, hey, why not try it? We're global citizens. We speak the language. Our money's green, as Bogdan's saying. Why not go and buy a U.S. company? There's plenty of companies for sale. And I think that's by far the easiest way to enter the U.S. market. So all the things we said so far, forget, buy a company and you're there, And
I agree. And I can come back to that. But essentially, the one thing that I've noticed about the U.S. market is that, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, people are ready to try out things much more easily than anywhere in the world.
Right.
I'm ready to try it out. Yes, absolutely. So if you pay attention to do every step right before getting to meet a client, when you meet a client and all of that, even though they know you are a so-called underdog, right, compared to the bigger companies out there, if they see that you are real and committed to delivering, that's worth gold to a client. Prove yourself once, you're going to get business twice. And coming back to what you said, it's true. You know, we've done the same thing. Essentially, back in February, we bought a business, and that was really, you know, the right move to do. Yes, you do have some differences in the culture, but think about all the businesses that are really international today. You learn how to work those cultures. There's articles, PhDs done on the subject. It's not an easy one, right? If you go to Japan, if you go to the US, you will have different, you know, cultural differences. You learn to adapt, just as any entrepreneur.
It's a global world.
Thank you. We have two more questions, and we'll end. I think the heat is starting to get higher here. Someone asks, says thank you for the wonderful insights. Thank you for the thank you. And the question is, what is your number one advice for attracting US investors?
In Romania?
I think...
No. Let them stay away.
Okay.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I know this is recorded and it's going to come back and bite me. But, and again, I'm being facetious. I'm not against foreign investors coming to Romania. But if they come on the model that we've had in the last 30 years, in other words, they come for the cheap labor, please stay away. First of all, we're no longer cheap. Okay, and again, as a university professor, I'm very proud that my students are earning lots of money, you know. Second of all, if they come in and they have no other competitive advantage than just to come in and take advantage of the workforce or sell products to the Romanian market, let them stay away. I think that era is over. If they come in as investors, if they come in as partners with some technology or with some intellectual property, yes, then I can see it. But in the traditional model, the way we've done in the last 30 years, no.
What about maybe the VCs or the investment funds?
Bring them on. I love them. So VCs, universities, research centers. Oh, I love all those guys.
Do you have any advice, both of you, for people that are trying to talk with this kind of people, the VCs? I mean, in the startup world, that's the way to go right now. I mean, everyone is trying to have a phone call with a VC over the ocean.
Basic sales, David. It's basic sales. It's the laws and numbers. You connect with 100 people. Out of those, 20 people want to talk to you. Out of the 20 people that say they want to talk to you, you talk to 5. Out of the 5, you sign a contract with the 1. So I think that if you do the sales process, and it is a process, you cannot bypass it, then you can attract the VC. My concern is not the VC, because I think the VCs are interested in the Romanian market.
Especially now with the UiPath success.
Exactly. My concern is that we're not ready for them. I talk weekly with people that have great ideas, and then when I tell them, hey, go ahead and write a business plan, that's it. I've lost them. They don't have the discipline, or when they write a business plan.
Their startup remains on a PowerPoint.
And again, I don't mean to be very critical, because I have the same issues myself, where it's a tyranny of the urgent. I got so many things to do. I don't have time to write the business plan. I don't have time to follow up on the very important things. And as a general rule of startups, I think that if you work on things that don't demand your attention, you're working on the right things. If you work on the things that are screaming for your attentions, you're probably not adding a lot of value.
And coming back to the connection with the US, if you do plan to expand, it will take time.
Yeah.
It takes time. So think about within a month I'm going to have an operation in the US. No, it's going to take 18 months at least, at the very least. It's probably going to cost you about $150,000 to $200,000 bare bones. We're not talking about office and, I don't know how many people hire there. Just 1 or 2 people at the very best. So it's not cheap. Second, it takes time and really just patience working out different avenues to learn the market.
Yeah. Okay. We have still 2 questions.
We have oxygen for one more.
Okay, perfect. We'll take one more. Taking into consideration the local IT product companies, which one do you think did a really good job expanding to the US and worldwide, and why?
Well, I'll ask you that because you're the expert. I think we have some very nice champions here in Oradea. So again, not only because I live here and I teach here, but I really do see objectively what Oradea does as a proportion of the number of IT people. So I think we have about 3,000 IT workers, give or take, in Oradea, which is a very small number. Cluj has probably about 25,000. Timișoara has about 20,000. We have only about 3,000. And you look at the big names that we have, you know, the typing DNAs and those guys, which are really doing a good job internationally. So I think that our ecosystem is very well prepared to go international. And I'd love to see them go more towards the US.
And one thing I would add is, and this is not for tiger personalities, right? The one thing that we tend to do as underdogs coming from Eastern Europe is to think, oh, we're too small, they're not going to pay attention, they're not going to be wanting to work with us and all of that. Forget about it. If you know what you have, if you have, and again, I'm talking about services, I'm pretty sure this applies to products too. If you're certain about your product, about your service, go, have courage. People will tell you, they're going to say no a lot of times. That doesn't mean it should change the opinion you have about yourself. So just don't think too much about the client ahead of time. Just let time set in, do a great job presenting your product, and then just patience.
Yeah. Don't talk yourself out of a sale. Yeah. That's so true.
That sums it up.
People talk themselves. No, they're not interested. They don't like me. I'm Romanian. I'm
overthinking everything.
I think blessed are the ignorant. The less you know, the dumber you are, the more success you will have. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating. No. I'm exaggerating, on this point. But I do want to see people that stop analyzing and they make a move. And I'm sorry, I'm very particular about this because people deceive themselves thinking that if they just, share something or they like something that they're actually doing work, They have to get out and do things, get rejected, send a pitch deck to somebody, have a conversation with a potential partner, things like that. That's actual work. Me having an opinion about what's going on in City Hall, me, not liking president this or president that, that's not work. That's just a waste of time.
Thank you very much for the time being here and for all the details you shared with us. Thank you for the people in the audience, for the questions and for their patience. We are doing this kind of talks more and more here at Oradea Tech Hub, and if you want to keep in touch, subscribe to the newsletter, like our Facebook page or other social network you are on, we are also there. If you want to get involved somehow, Oradea Tech Hub is an NGO. Everything you see or not see here, you don't want to imagine what's behind the cameras right now. It's done by our precious volunteers, and we are open for anyone to join the team. And thank you to our gentlemen here. Thank you for your time again. We'll see you soon again on another episode, maybe with Roland as a host or other people that we are trying to bring in also to help us with these events. Until next time, stay chill and see you soon. Thank you.